My parents favored my brother my whole life. Then he found out I had $198,000 in savings and completely lost it on New Year's Eve. Hey, Reddit, grab some popcorn, because this one's a ride. I'm Gavin, 34M, and I run a small solo operation. I'm not here to ask for sympathy or play the victim. This is just what happens when you spend 3 decades being invisible in your own family. I'm the older brother. Showed up first, had my time as an only child for 6 years. Then Nick was born, and everything changed. Not slowly, not over time, instantly. It was like someone flipped a switch, and suddenly, I was just background scenery in my own life. Look, I get it. New babies are exciting. Parents get caught up in that. But this wasn't that. This was different. Nick wasn't just a new baby. He was a baby. The one they actually wanted. Mom updated Nick's baby book religiously. Mine stopped after 3 months. Dad took him to every single one of his activities. I had to ride my bike to robotics club because Dad was always busy with Nick's stuff. It was all small things at first, but they pile up over 18 years until you realize you're living with people who barely even acknowledge your existence. Nick was a regular kid, not exceptionally talented, but they still treated him like he was a second coming. The thing is, he wasn't mean about it when we were kids. He didn't even understand what was happening. To him, this was normal. He'd invite me to play, share his toys, try to include me. The favoritism wasn't his fault. Not then, anyway. By middle school, I stopped trying. I stopped bringing home awards for them to ignore. Stopped hoping they'd come to my competitions. I'd come home, do my homework in my room, eat dinner in silence while they talked about Nick's day, then disappear again. The high school guidance counselor meeting was a moment it really hit me, the moment I accepted what things truly were. I had real scholarship offers. The counselor was excited, laying out all these opportunities, top-tier programs reaching out to me because of my robotics work and grades. Mom and Dad sat there looking bored. Then Nick texted that he needed a ride home from basketball practice, and they just got up and left. Mid-meeting. Just walked out. The counselor looked at me with his mix of pity and confusion. She tried to make it better, said we could meet again with just me. But I already knew. I was on my own, had been all along. I got a full ride to state, a solid engineering program. The scholarship covered everything: room, board, tuition, books. I didn't need a single dollar from my parents, which was good because they didn't offer any. Nick got into some mediocre private school with a decent business program. It cost about $40,000 a year. They took out massive loans for him, threw him a going-away party with probably 200 people. College was the first time I could breathe. For years where nobody compared me to Nick. Nobody ignored my accomplishments. Nobody made me feel like I was taking up space I didn't deserve. I went home 3 times total. Thanksgiving freshman year, Christmas sophomore year, and one random weekend junior year when I forgot my birth certificate and had to grab it. Each visit reminded me exactly why I stayed away. Everything was Nick. His classes, his friends, his parties, his problems, his opinions. I'd sit at the dinner table, and they'd talk at me, not to me. How's school? Fine. That's good. Then right back to Nick. After graduation, I bounced around for a while, worked a couple of regular engineering jobs, saved like crazy, and started learning everything I could about solar energy systems. The industry was booming, and everyone was focused on installations. But I saw an opening, maintenance and operations. I started freelancing on weekends, small contract with solar farms that needed regular upkeep but didn't want full-time staff. I fixed problems, optimized performance, kept things running. Word spread. 1 contract became 3. 3 became 7. And eventually, I quit my day job to run my own operation full-time. Just me, a used truck, and a lot of desert driving. The work's physical, climbing, mounting structures, replacing panels, troubleshooting inverters in 110 degrees heat. But it's mine. Every dollar I make, I owned. Every client I have, I got through actual work. Nobody handed me anything. Meanwhile, my brother was struggling. He graduated and immediately expected some high-level position just because he had a degree. He bounced between 3 jobs in 2 years. Mom called it finding the right fit. I called it getting fired for being insufferable. And of course, every time Nick crashed, Mom and Dad bailed him out, covered his rent, made his car payments, funded his lifestyle while he figured things out. And every time they mentioned it to me in passing, like I was supposed to applaud their generosity, I didn't. I was busy building something real. Now, let me tell you about my wife, Rebecca. We met 5 years ago at a solar industry conference. I was there checking out new panel technology. She was representing an engineering firm that designed mounting systems. We ended up in the same breakout session about efficiency losses in extreme temperatures. She asked a question that completely stumped the presenter, something technical about thermal expansion coefficients. The guy fumbled through a non-answer. After the session, I found her, and we ended up talking for 2 hours straight about actual solutions. She was sharp, direct, didn't waste time with small talk or fake politeness. We exchanged numbers, started texting about work stuff, then grabbed coffee, then dinner. 6 months later, she met my parents. That first dinner at their house, I should have known better, but Rebecca wanted to meet them. She thought it was important. I warned her, but honestly, you can't really explain my family until you meet them. We showed up, and the first thing Mom did was ask Rebecca about her job. Before Rebecca could even finish one sentence about her engineering work, Dad cut in to announce that Nick had just made senior analyst, the youngest in his department. I watched Rebecca's expression shift like she was observing something fascinating in a zoo. Dinner was worse. I mentioned landing a major contract. Mom nodded politely and immediately pivoted to Nick's latest promotion. Nick was there too, with some girl he was dating. He dominated every conversation, brushing off my maintenance work as basically just being a handyman. Rebecca shut that down fast. She calmly explained, in detail, what owning a business actually means. Then she turned to Nick and asked what he did. He said he was an analyst handling market data. Rebecca smiled and said, "So, you make reports about numbers someone else earned." Mom jumped in to defend Nick's sophisticated work. Rebecca, who, by the way, has a master's in mechanical engineering, offered to let Nick explain his investment strategies to her. She said she'd love to learn. The temperature in that room dropped about 20 degrees. Nick tried to save face by explaining his job in detail, tossing around buzzwords and corporate jargon that didn't actually mean anything. Rebecca asked him specific follow-up questions that made it painfully obvious how little he actually understood. By the end of dinner, Mom and Dad clearly hated Rebecca. Nick looked like he'd been hit by a truck. Rebecca stayed perfectly pleasant the entire time. She just refused to play along with their delusion. On the drive home, she said, "Your family is a piece of work." She pointed out what I'd known my whole life but had never heard anyone else say out loud, that Nick was average at best, and they convinced him he was special, all while spending my entire life making me feel like I wasn't enough. It was the first time anyone had ever said it so plainly. We got married 2 years ago, a small ceremony. Her parents treated me better in a single weekend than mine had in 30 years. Her dad asked about my business, genuinely interested, and even helped me land 2 contracts through his connections. Her mom checked in on us regularly and actually cared. It was jarring. I didn't know family could be like that. My parents came to the wedding out of obligation. Nick brought a date and spent most of the time glued to his phone, probably texting other girls. After the wedding, I kept my contact with my parents minimal. Holiday texts, an occasional phone call. I stopped initiating, stopped trying, just kept them at arm's length. Nick kept cycling through jobs. Mom and Dad kept enabling him. I kept building my business. Rebecca and I saved aggressively. We drove used cars, lived below our means, and put away every extra dollar. She made good money as a senior project manager. I was earning solid numbers with my solar contracts. Combined, we were pulling in over $200,000 a year. In a lower cost of living area, that adds up fast when you're not blowing it trying to keep up with the neighbors. We had a goal. Save enough for a bigger house, keep building the business, maybe start a family eventually. 3 months before New Year's, Mom called and asked if I could help with their AC. It had died. I drove out there, diagnosed the problem, and got it running again. Spent 4 hours fixing it. Didn't charge them a dime. Mom thanked me, then spent the next hour telling me all about Nick's new job at some startup, how he was going to be important there, and how proud they were of him. I had just fixed the AC for free on a Saturday, and they couldn't make it 15 minutes without making everything about him. On the drive home, Rebecca was quiet. Then she said, "You know they're never going to change, right?" "I know. So why do you keep doing this?" I didn't have a good answer. Habit, maybe. Some leftover hope that one day they'd wake up and actually see me. But that hope was fading fast. Mom called in early December about New Year's Eve. Big party at their house, family tradition. Everyone would be there. I almost said no. Rebecca definitely wanted to say no. But I knew if we skipped it, we'd hear about it for months. The guilt trips would be relentless. "One more," I told Rebecca. "We go to this one, and if it's the same garbage as always, we're done. No more family events." She agreed, but made it clear, first sign of disrespect, we were leaving. No drawn-out goodbyes. In the weeks leading up to the party, Mom kept calling with updates. Nick's new girl was coming, Fiona. Apparently, she was amazing. Successful pharmaceutical sales rep. Mom was already planning their wedding in her head, even though they'd only been dating for, 8 weeks? "She makes great money," Mom said on one call, like that was the only thing that mattered. "And Nick's doing so well at his new job." I didn't mention that Rebecca made more as an engineer than most sales representatives. Didn't mention that my business had just landed another major contract. What would be the point? 2 weeks before the party, Nick called me out of nowhere. We barely talked anymore, so it was weird. He started asking about my business. Fake interest. Small talk, before launching into his usual pitch about some revolutionary project he was working on. Eventually, he got to the real point. He said I should bring my financial info to the party so he could give me some investment advice. Said he wanted to show me how to actually grow whatever little nest egg I'd saved. Something in his tone bothered me. Too interested, too pushy. I told him maybe and ended the call. Rebecca clocked it instantly. "The guy who's been bailed out by your parents 3 times wants to give you financial advice," she said. "He either wants to feel superior or wants to see your numbers to feel better about his own. Probably both." She wasn't wrong. The day before New Year's Eve, he texted me, "Don't forget to bring your laptop tomorrow. I want to show you this portfolio tracker I use. It'll blow your mind." I didn't respond. We showed up at my parents' house around 7 on New Year's Eve. The party was already in full swing. Cars lined the street. Music thumped from inside. Decorations everywhere. Full catering setup. Clearly, no expense spared. Mom met us at the door. "Oh, good. You made it. Nick and Fiona are in the living room. Come meet her." Nick was holding court in the living room. 6 relatives clustered around him. Fiona stood next to him, checking her phone every 30 seconds. And that's when I realized their entire investment strategy was fundamentally flawed. Nick was saying, "I rebuilt the approach from scratch. Saved the client something like $3 million in potential losses." Dad was beaming like Nick had just negotiated world peace. The relatives were nodding along, clearly impressed by words they didn't actually understand. Rebecca leaned in and whispered, "I'm getting a drink, maybe 3. Dinner was a usual production. 20 people crammed around an extended table. Mom had gone all out with the catering, multiple courses, fancy dishes, the whole show. During the meal, Mom went around the table asking everyone about their year highlights. When she got to me, I mentioned landing a major maintenance contract with a solar farm in Nevada. Good money, long-term stability. She nodded. "That's nice, honey." Then immediately turned to Nick. "Nick, tell everyone about your promotion." And off he went. A 20-minute speech about his career trajectory, how he'd worked his way up, how his superiors recognized his talent, how he was on track to make partner by 40. Blah, blah, blah. I caught Uncle Ron's eye across the table. He gave me a sympathetic look. Ron's the only relative who's ever really asked about my life. He's a retired electrician. He gets the value of real work. After dinner, people spread out through the house. I ended up in the kitchen talking with Ron for maybe 30 minutes. Then Nick appeared in the doorway. "Gavin, got a minute? I want to show you something in the den." I followed him. Several relatives trailed behind us, curious. Rebecca caught my eye from across the room, her expression clearly saying, "Here we go." He had his laptop set up in the den, some financial dashboard pulled up on the screen. It looked expensive and complicated, probably more flash than substance. Knowing Nick, that tracked. "Check this out," he said as the relatives gathered around. "This is how I track my portfolio. It integrates with all your accounts, shows real-time performance, project growth based on market conditions, professional-grade software." The relatives crowded closer, impressed by all the colorful charts and graphs. "This," Nick continued, "is how you actually manage money in the modern age. Not just letting it sit in some basic savings account, earning basically nothing." I told him my money was fine where it was, but he wouldn't let it go. "What's your return rate?" he pressed. "0.5%, I admitted. He shook his head like I'd just confessed to a crime. "You're losing money to inflation," he said. "I can show you how to actually build wealth instead of treading water." Even Uncle Ron chimed in, saying Nick had a point. Nick kept going, asking how much I'd even save. "What? 15, 20 grand? Maybe 30 if you've been really disciplined?" When I told him it was none of his business, he went in for the kill. He acted like he wasn't judging me for not making professional-level money, just trying to help me maximize whatever I got. A few relatives chuckled. Once again, I was the punchline. Rebecca appeared beside me, voice cold as ice, warning Nick to be careful how he finished that sentence. He doubled down. "I mean, I worked a job that didn't exactly come with huge paychecks," he said. "I was just trying to help." Rebecca shut that down hard. She explained exactly what owning a commercial operation meant: the contracts, the logistics, the finances, the technical work. But sure, reduce it to blue collar just to feel superior. Mom rushed in to defend Nick's helpfulness. Dad tried to play peacemaker, warning everyone that nobody was insulting anyone. Nick was just offering his professional expertise as a gesture of goodwill. I was about to walk away when Nick reached for my phone on the side table, saying he'd just pull up a savings calculator to prove his point. I grabbed it before he could touch it. His eyes lit up with that look he gets when he thinks he's found an angle. He turned to the gathered relatives and announced, loud enough for everyone to hear, "I bet he's got, 5,000 in savings?" Probably too embarrassed to admit it. That's why he's being so defensive. Some of the relatives laughed, some awkwardly, some genuinely amused. Something in me shifted right then. Not anger, something colder, something final. "You really want to know?" I asked. Nick nodded, still smirking. "Let's see what we're working with, so I can give you proper advice." I pulled out my phone, opened my banking app, and handed it to him without saying a word. He took it, still smirking, but that smirk only lasted about 3 seconds. Then his face went white. All the blood drained right out of him. His hands started shaking. "What is it?" Mom asked, concern creeping into her voice. "Nick, what's wrong?" Nick's voice came out strangled. This can't be real." "It's real," I said. "What is it?" Dad moved closer, trying to see the screen. Nick held up my phone with a trembling hand. "Gavin has $198,000 in savings." The room went completely silent. You could have heard a pin drop in the next county. Everyone just stared at that phone screen like it was evidence of a crime. Uncle Ron's eyebrows shot up. My aunt's mouth literally fell open. Dad's face cycled through confusion, shock, and something else I couldn't quite read. Mom recovered first. "That's impossible. Gavin fixes solar panels. He can't have that much money saved." "But he does," Nick said, still staring at my phone like it personally offended him. "It's right here, savings account. 198,000 and some change." Rebecca crossed her arms. "Turns out work pays pretty well when you actually own the business and don't blow money on stupid stuff." Nick's shock started morphing into something uglier. "How? You're crawling around on solar panels in the middle of nowhere. There's no way you earn this much doing maintenance work." "I own the business, Nick," I said. "Have for 5 years now. Contract revenue runs about 400 grand a year. Overhead's low because I keep operations small and efficient. Rebecca makes good money at her firm. We both save aggressively instead of spending on things we don't need. Pretty basic math." Dad finally found his voice. "You own a business? Since when?" 5 years, I said. You never told us that. I did, multiple times. You just never listened. Mom's face was flush red, that familiar defensive anger rising. We thought you were doing handyman work. You let us think. I didn't let you think anything. I cut in. You assumed. I told you years ago I started my own operation doing solar farm maintenance. You weren't interested enough to ask follow-up questions. The relatives were watching it all like a live sports event. Uncle Ron looked impressed. My aunt kept glancing between me and Nick, probably trying to figure out what just happened. Nick wasn't done spiraling. So what? You been hiding this from us? Playing pool while sitting on almost 200 grand? I wasn't playing anything, I said. You all decided I was unsuccessful and treated me that way. I just didn't bother correcting you because, frankly, I stopped caring what you thought years ago. That's your brother. Mom snapped at me. Family helps family. Rebecca let out a sharp laugh. Family helps family, Mom snapped. Rebecca turned to her, calm but sharp. Where were you when he was 18 and on his own? Where were you when he was building his business from nothing? Where were you for literally any achievement in his entire life? We've always supported Gavin, Dad said, but even he didn't sound convinced. Rebecca didn't let up. You didn't help him start his business. You barely acknowledge he exists unless you need something. But sure, keep telling yourself you supported him. Mom turned on Rebecca then. You don't understand family dynamics. You haven't been part of this family long enough to. I understand enough. Rebecca cut her off. I understand that you raise one son to think is exceptional and the other to think is worthless. That's enough, Dad said, his voice hard now. Nick was pacing. I recognized that look. He was spinning out. His whole identity had always been built on being the successful one, the golden child, the one who made it. And now here I was, his supposedly struggling older brother, standing in front of him with proof that his story wasn't true anymore. You know what this is. Nick said, voice rising. This is you competing with me. You can't stand that I'm the successful one, so you're trying to one-up me, showing off your money to make me look small. I laughed. Nick, I don't think about you enough to compete with you. I built my business because I wanted to. None of it had anything to do with you. That's not true, he snapped. You showed me that balance specifically to humiliate me in front of everyone. You literally demanded to see it, I said. You wouldn't shut up about giving me investment advice and proving how much smarter you are with money. Boys, Mom tried to interject. This is getting out of hand. No, Nick said. Let's get everything out in the open. Why hide how much you make? Why not tell family you're doing well financially? Rebecca stepped forward. Because of exactly this. You can't handle Gavin succeeding. It threatens your ego, so you're lashing out instead of being happy for him. By then, the entire party had stopped. Every eye in the house was on us, or pretending not to be, while clearly listening. Mom's big New Year's celebration was falling apart. Part of me felt bad for that. But a bigger part felt nothing at all. Nick grabbed his coat off the chair. His movements were jerky, angry. You think you're better than me. I honestly don't think about you at all, Nick, I said quietly. You're not the center of my universe. You never were. His face went red. You're so... He caught himself before saying something he couldn't take back. Fiona, we're leaving. Now. His girlfriend looked relieved to have an excuse. They headed for the door without saying goodbye to anyone. Mom immediately turned on me. Did you have to humiliate Nick like that? I didn't humiliate him, I said. He humiliated himself by demanding to see my balance. You could have lied, she shot back. You could have said you had less. You didn't have to throw money in his face. Dad backed her up. There were better ways to handle it. Son, ways that didn't involve making Nick face reality in front of everyone. I'd had enough. I grabbed Rebecca's arm. We're leaving. Mom's voice went cold. Good. You've done enough damage for one night. We walked out without another word, got in the car, drove in silence for about 10 minutes. Then Rebecca started laughing. My mom actually blamed me for Nick's meltdown, I said, half in disbelief. Told me I should have lied about my own money to protect his feelings. Rebecca shook her head, still laughing. We got home around 11, watched the ball drop on TV, and had some snacks. Rebecca warned me that Nick would retaliate. That look in his eyes wasn't embarrassment, she said. It was rage. People like him don't handle reality checks well. She was right. Around 1 a.m., my phone buzzed. A text from Mom. You need to apologize to your brother. What you did tonight was cruel and unnecessary. I deleted it without responding. 3 more texts came in over the next hour. Then Dad chimed in with his own, all about family loyalty and responsibility. I turned my phone off and went to bed. Rebecca was already asleep, but as I lay there staring at the ceiling, I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. And I was right. It was just the beginning. Nick went completely dark for 2 weeks. No calls, no texts, nothing on social media, just silence. Mom called me 6 times, asking me to reach out to him. Said he was hurt and confused. Said I needed to be the bigger person. I didn't call him. Bigger person or not, I was done managing Nick's emotions. Then one night, my bank sent me an alert. Unusual account activity detected. Someone had tried logging into my savings account from an unrecognized device at 3 in the morning. The attempt was blocked by 2-factor authentication, but whoever it was made 4 tries in 10 minutes. I called the bank security line immediately. The bank rep confirmed that someone had my correct username and even the answers to my security questions, but they couldn't get past the text verification sent to my phone. Do you know anyone who might have access to this information? She asked. I knew exactly who it was. Nick had been holding my phone at the party, staring at my banking app for several minutes while his brain short-circuited. Long enough to see my username sitting right there in the top corner. Long enough to mentally note details. Yeah, I said quietly. I know who tried this. I changed all my passwords immediately. Added every extra layer of security I could find. Then I called Rebecca at work and told her what happened. Call the police, she said immediately. Here's my brother, I said. Is committing fraud. Gavin, this is serious. I know, but nothing, she snapped. Call them. Instead, I called my parents. I told Mom that Nick had tried logging into my bank account. She immediately defended him. He wouldn't commit a crime. He's just upset. I explained. Someone with my username and security answers tried to access my account at 3 a.m., and Nick had held my phone for several minutes at the party. Plus, Mom posts everything on Facebook. First pet names, childhood streets, fun little get-to-know-me posts, basically all the stuff that banks use for security questions. Mom said it was probably a hacker. Dad got on the phone, saying Nick was going through a hard time and that I was painting him as a criminal after already humiliating him. He suggested it was probably a false positive from the security system. Mom told me to just work it out with Nick directly. Don't involve outsiders, she said, like family meant tolerating actual crime. I hung up and called Nick directly. I warned him to stay out of my accounts or I'd file a police report. He denied everything, told me to prove it, then went on a rant about how I just got lucky with a basic service business while he worked in actual finance. Said I was just some guy climbing ladders in the desert. Mom and Dad already knew I was a problem. They always had been. Then he hung up. Rebecca came home later and found me adding extra security to every account we had. When she asked if I'd call the police, I admitted I'd just warned Nick off. She went stone-faced. He denied it and told you to prove it. So he's going to keep trying. You don't actually believe that, I said, but I didn't even believe myself. The tone in Nick's voice, that vindictive, sharp edge, reminded me of when we were kids. Every time he got caught doing something wrong, he'd deny it, deflect the blame, and then do something worse when no one was looking. 3 days later, I got a notification from my credit monitoring service. Someone had tried opening a credit card in my name. The application was flagged for verification issues, but it had been submitted with my personal information. Then another attempt came through, a loan application, also flagged and declined. That was it. I drove straight to the station and filed a report. I brought everything, the login attempts, the credit applications, the timestamps, the evidence. The officer listened, took my statement, and said, "This is clearly identity theft. We'll need to follow up with the financial institutions, but you've got solid evidence here. Do you know who's doing this? He asked. My brother, I said. The officer's face didn't change. He'd probably seen worse. We'll investigate, but if it's him, he's facing serious charges. 2 days later, detectives showed up at Nick's apartment. He denied everything at first, but they had evidence. His IP address matched the login attempts. His device fingerprint matched the credit applications. When they searched his computer, they found my personal information saved in a spreadsheet. They arrested him and charged him with identity theft, attempted fraud, and unauthorized computer access, 3 felonies. My phone blew up. Mom called 18 times before I finally answered. How could you do this to Nick? She cried. I didn't do anything to him, I said. He committed the crimes, not me. He made a mistake, she insisted. He was angry. He wasn't thinking clearly. I corrected her. Multiple calculated attempts to steal my money and open credit in my name isn't a mistake. It's a crime spree. She begged me to tell the DA I didn't want to press charges. I explained. That's not how it works. The state's prosecuting him now. My cooperation just makes their case stronger. Dad got on the phone then, furious. Nick's entire life will be ruined. I said, Nick ruined his own life. I'm just not covering for him anymore. Mom broke down, sobbing. He's your baby brother. Don't do this to our family. I just sat there, silent for a long time. Then I finally said, where was my family my whole life, when I was building something real and getting no recognition? You made your choice decades ago. She started showing up at Rebecca's workplace, waiting in the parking lot, trying to corner her during lunch breaks. The second time it happened, Rebecca called building security. They escorted Mom off the property and issued a formal trespass warning. On her way out, Mom grabbed Rebecca's arm. You're poisoning him against his family, she said. Rebecca pulled free. The family is poisoned already. The harassment didn't stop. It went on for weeks, different relatives calling to mediate, family friends reaching out, church people trying to counsel me about forgiveness. I blocked 4 to 7 numbers in 2 months. Then the letters started. Nick sent them from jail, long, rambling pages about how I'd always been jealous of him, how this was revenge for years of resentment, how he'd been struggling with mental health and I'd kicked him while he was down. Every letter said the same thing. His problems were everyone else's fault, and he was a victim while I was a villain. After the 3rd one, I stopped opening them, just threw them away. Rebecca and I started talking about moving, maybe to another city, somewhere fresh. Colorado had good opportunities. So did Arizona. Somewhere far enough that my parents couldn't just show up at our door. But I liked my business. I built it from scratch. I had solid contracts and good client relationships. Moving meant starting over, and I was tired of running from their dysfunction. One evening, Rebecca looked up from her laptop. We could fight back, she said. Restraining orders. Legal action for harassment. I thought about it. Part of me wanted to just disappear, to let them destroy themselves without me being part of it. You think it'll actually stop them? I asked. It'll make it illegal for them not to stop right now, she said. They keep pushing because you won't push back. She was right. I was tired of being pushed around, tired of being treated like I was a problem for having boundaries. Let's do it, I said. We met with a lawyer and filed restraining orders against all 3 of them, Mom, Dad, and Nick once he got out. The documentation was overwhelming. Dozens of blocked calls, security footage of them showing up at our house, witness statements from Rebecca's workplace, and Nick's increasingly unhinged letters from jail. When the court date finally came, Mom and Dad showed up looking like I'd personally betrayed them. The judge reviewed everything. The calls, the workplace harassment, Dad showing up at my job site, the letters. He looked up and asked, do you have any response to these allegations? Mom's voice cracked. We're just trying to maintain a relationship with our son, Mom said through tears. The judge looked down at the paperwork again, flipping through the thick stack of evidence. According to these records, he said, your son has asked you repeatedly to stop contacting him. You continued anyway. But families should work through problems together, Mom said weakly. The judge shook his head. Family relationships don't exempt anyone from harassment laws. Then he signed the orders. 500 feet minimum distance, he said clearly. No contact whatsoever. Not directly. Not through relatives or friends. Not through social media. Having someone else pass along a message counts as a violation. Any breach means immediate arrest. Am I clear? Mom broke down crying. Dad just stared at me with pure hatred. I felt nothing except relief. Rebecca drove us home while I stared out the window, feeling lighter than I had in years. Like I'd finally cut loose a weight I'd been dragging around since childhood. Nick got out of jail after 13 months. I got an automatic notification when he was released. We upgraded our home security system that same week, added cameras, better locks, motion sensors, the works. The restraining order was still in place, but I wasn't taking any chances. A week later, my cousin Brian called. Hey, Nick wanted me to pass along a message. Stop right there. I said, you know there's a restraining order, right? Third-party contact counts as a violation. He just wanted to say, I'm forwarding this call to the police. Don't contact me again about Nick. And I hung up, then did exactly that. The police paid Nick a visit the next day to remind him of the legal consequences if he tried anything else. After that, silence. 6 months later, Rebecca and I bought the bigger house we'd been saving for, the one we used to talk about late at night when things were rough. Used the same money they'd all been so worried about. New place. Better neighborhood. Space to actually live instead of just survive. My business kept growing. I hired 2 full-time employees, landed contract with 3 more solar farms, bought new equipment. Life was good, really good. Mom and Dad tried occasionally. Birthday cards sent to Rebecca's parents' address. Messages passed through old family friends. I ignored all of it. When the restraining orders came up for renewal, I made sure they were extended. Nick started posting on social media, vague stuff about betrayal and fake family, quotes about karma and forgiveness. I had him blocked, but sometimes mutual acquaintances would send me screenshots, thinking I should know. I didn't care. Let him post whatever helped him sleep at night. It didn't affect my life anymore. About a year later, Uncle Ron reached out. He'd stayed neutral through most of it, and I respected that. This time, he said he wanted to talk. One last attempt. We met for coffee. He didn't waste time. Your parents aren't getting any younger, Gavin, he said. Don't you want to reconcile before it's too late? No. He blinked, clearly surprised. Maybe he expected hesitation. Being a parent requires more than biology. Ron, I said, they made their choices for 30 years. Now I'm making mine. You might regret it someday. I really won't, I told him, but I appreciate the concern. He studied me for a moment, then nodded slowly. All right, then. He didn't bring it up again. Some people talk about family like it's sacred, like blood automatically means loyalty. But I learned the hard way that family is supposed to build you up, not tear you down. It's supposed to support you, not steal from you. It's supposed to celebrate your success, not resent it. My real family is Rebecca and her parents, who welcome me completely. The friends I've made who actually care about my life. The employees I've hired who show up every day and work hard. That's family. The people who raised me, the brother who tried to destroy me financially, they're just cautionary tales now. That's the only real revenge, living well. Sometimes the best thing you can do is cut off a dead weight and move forward, even if that dead weight came out of the same womb you did. Especially if it did. YouTube just dropped this new hype feature. If you're hooked on this story, smash that hype button. It tells YouTube, this video deserves to blow up.